Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Tuesday, it's October 18th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this is going to be short and sweet today. Today, really, it was just a range day. The lows, the actual low of the day, we spent most of the day within this 2132 and 2138, so maybe 6 points, but if you take the low of the regular trading session, it's about a 10-point range. So, and that's pretty average for a range on a slow day in the ES. So that's nothing. Um, it's a little bit lower volume. Somebody asked me if it should change to a lower chart. No, it's not that low a volume. Generally, I will not change the size of my tick chart unless it's been low volume like this for a week or two. Then I might consider it. But just occasionally, you're going to get days like this. There's just not much. Um, it's not much volume. So this I've seen it worse than this, but I've certainly seen it a lot better. So there's still plenty of trades here today. There's a few green ones, but there's still a few chances to make some pretty good money today. Um, you can tell that the better trades were once it was obvious it was a range, selling the highs. You never really got a chance to buy the lows because it never got back down there. Um, but most of it, everything was selling today. We had a spike and channel up with a break, two legs to a new high. Then we reversed. You're coming down, you get a break, a new low, and you're working up. And really, you just hit the high of the range again, and it tries to go higher and then turns down. But by that time, it's too late in the day. So there were a couple of buys today, but mostly all sales. So I'm going to back out. We'll go through the trades and go from there. Um, this is a shorter term channel right here within the bigger two-tiered channel. Um, but because it's a range day, you just you get a break and you just keep going higher. So you don't really. It does work out on the shorter one. You're coming down, you get the break, and you try to go higher twice, and that was a pretty good trade right there. Um, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. Let me back out a little more. And when I came in, we had this spike. We spiked up and went into this channel. Somebody else sent me theirs, and they had two tiers in this channel. I guess you probably, if you drug it down to here, you could say it's two tiers. But generally, your trend always starts off your first two swings, and there's your first two swings after a spike and channel, and you get your break, and you get a perfect two measured two legs up, and then it reverses. So that's about as good as it gets. So, um, but anyway, when I came in, we'd had this break and we had a new high in place, but then we tried to go lower once again, and it bounces off the trend line, and you give it um, pretty good reversal bar. And most of the time, you're going to get two legs up, and with a spike and a with with the spiking channel this strong, I mean that's a really strong move up. You're probably going to get another push. You might have considered letting it break higher and trying to get a little better entry because the high of the day is right there. But on strong trend days, if you don't take first entries, you may not ever get an entry. So in this case, it's still a little early in the morning. It does look like a strong trend day at this point, but you do have a break, so that's still a little risky. And then it pushes up, it pulls back. And the reason I like this one is because it looks like we're going to go lower, and it turns lower, and then turns and goes right out the other side. That's a very small two-tick bar. So you might go long right there. You got plenty of room to get out on this one. It gets just enough to get a scalp, and then it reverses. So again, it's you got to be careful with that one. And then of course you get a lower high here, and that's a fairly bearish bar. But it's you couldn't go short here because you don't really get a good setup. But right here you get a really bearish bar. So you really might have considered that one, but we're right into the EMA, and a lot of times you'll get a bounce before it goes lower, and sure enough, it bounces. And now you got a failed second entry long when it goes shorter here, but we weren't back to the trend line. No matter how you drew it, I actually drew it a little steeper than probably what I originally thought it would be, and so we weren't back to it. So I wasn't comfortable with that one. I think notice that you're stacking up there. So I think you're better off to wait and kind of see what happens. And when it ticks higher and touches that trend line and then turns down, you get that bearish bar. It's still not perfect because now you got even more stacked up, and you've got a doji in there. So that's really congestion. But you made another lower high here, and you really tried to test this once, you tried to test it twice, and then you tried to test it a third time. So you might consider going short there, and it does confirm that trend line. Now at this point, it actually overshot it a hair just like it did here. But again, I think it's a little risky. I think you're better off to wait. And even here, you get the same thing. This is really sets the downtrend. This is where your downtrend really was obvious and started a new steeper trend. So there's your first two swings, but then it breaks lower, pulls back, and tests it again. And oops, didn't mean to do that. And so now you got a big bearish bar. So I like that one just simply because it's the third touch and the trend line's still holding. It's a fairly bearish bar. And so I like entering that one. At the very least, you're going to hope to get a measured move like your first leg. So that's putting prices down to here. But if this channel, the trend channel is down here, then you may move all the way down, and that's exactly where we go to. But you get a break of your trend line before that. So so this was the first really solid trade I saw. And then we come back, and it was tempting. I was even considering going short here again, but it never broke lower there. But notice how we're kind of stacking sideways again. That's not a good sign. So, but with that bearish bar and a higher low, that would have been a second entry right there, and I probably would have taken it if it would have broke lower, but it didn't. Pulls back, and then it gives you your second entry right here off the EMA. That's the first break of that trend line. We're probably going to test the low. Try to retest for a new low, and maybe if this double channel is right, we're coming all the way down to here. And so of course it does, it bounces right there first and then gives you another higher low. That's not a perfect signal bar, but that's a little bit of a trap right there. I guarantee you they trap people long, and you can tell by how quick it shot down. I don't think I would have waited on this bar. If I would have waited on that one, I would have tried to get in with a limit order further back, and you wouldn't have got filled. So if you didn't take that, this is a form of a trap here, and so that's why I like that one, even though the signal bar is not great. And you can tell it traps people by quickly. It drops down, and then it bounces. It's tempting to go long right there, and it would have worked if you did. But notice how it goes up, and then it makes a lower high right here. It's kind of hard to see because it's so small. But it makes a lower high right here. And so I like entering there on that lower high. We're so far away from the EMA. We've had our break, a move to a new low. This was where our original spiking channel started from. So it's a retest of that area. And you figure it's going to at least pull back to the EMA. Plus, notice we didn't test this breakout area yet. So you're probably going to come back to there. And it just keeps going, and hopefully if your channel's right, it's headed to the other side of the channel. And look how it gapped right over my line again there. See that all the time. There's actually a failed second entry short right here. Notice the new low, and then your first entry, then your second entry. But you've got this bigger channel working down, and this trend line right here has not been broken yet. So you got to be careful about going long right into that trend line. This would have pulled back and continued higher, but you figure it's going to turn down right in here somewhere, and it does. And so it would have worked, but you would have had to ride this out, and you don't know that this isn't going all the way down to retest the low. So you can't really enter there, and you don't really want to go long here yet either. So, but notice that's a double bottom right there. So that's like a new low. So there's a first entry short, and then you get a measured move, very similar to this. It's a little more than a measured move. Pulls back, and you get a failed second entry short there, and it bounces right off the trend line. It closes inside that trend line, fairly bullish bar. So I like that one. Thinking this is probably going to either be, at this point, I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking range day, or we're going to get another leg Um, first leg I'm going to measure would be this whole thing, but then in a secondary point I'm going to measure the spike and pull the mold here, and you see basically that spike, we still didn't get a measured leg, but it's pretty close. And the reason we couldn't is because this support's so strong here and it's a range day, we can't get through it. So I would have been looking for those two. And then also once we went higher from here, I'd have been looking at that, and that gets you almost a perfect measured move right up to the previous high points across there. So, and then once we stalled here, I'd put my line across there, because we've been working that line, and that actually goes into the previous day where we were working that again on both sides. You can see it working at both sides right there. So, so I like that. And when it touches it again, so that's a double test of where we made the last high right there and a big bearish bar. So I like that one for a short, hoping that I'm going to catch the high of the day, and or the high of the range anyway, and go lower. Pretty good move, and then it bounces and gives you a failed second entry long right there. Notice the high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. And that's the first break of this little trend working down. This is almost a repeat pattern of earlier. It's very similar, and but you get two more legs back up, and then another second entry short. And the reason I like this one is that you got a little trading range here. That's just a failed break higher. Go short right there. Once it kind of went sideways there, I don't like entering again. Plus that's after 2 o'clock. So. But if you once you're in this one, you could ride this all the way down to the close if you wanted to. So just something to think about. But yeah, not a lot of trades today, but there were a couple of good ones. This was a pretty good trade. If you caught this one, you caught the low and got to ride it all the way up. If you caught this one, you could have ridden it down to the low. So there were a couple of runners there. A couple of decent trades, and early on, I mean, you almost had, you had to be patient today. You had to wait till slightly after the open to take your first for sure trade. These were all a little risky. Maybe not this one. This one could actually go both ways, but because we're going sideways here, you just have to be real careful with it. So, and you actually, you know, you actually had your failed second entry long right there. But everything's still above the EMA. You're going sideways. Look at all those bars. And if you'd have went short right there, you'd have got stopped out by one tick, only to see it go exactly where you thought it was going to go to begin with. So if you got trapped there, if you entered there and this bar ends as a doji with all those stacked up, that's a sure sign that that's congestion. And I'd probably exit with break even or a tick or two, or maybe a tick loss, as quick as I could, just in case it goes higher. And of course, it turns out it just traps people when it goes higher, and then it goes where you think it's going to go. So, but that's what they'll do. If you try to get a little aggressive, they'll punish you for it sometimes, and then other times you got to be a little bit aggressive to catch the trades of the day. So, you know, worst comes to worst, you lose a couple of ticks here and you make it back up on your next aggressive one. So that's the way I usually look at those aggressive trades. But if I'm not 100% sure that it's a trap or feel like it's a trap, I'm probably just going to skip it and wait on the good trade. A trader asked me today, he says, you know, I wish you'd talk more about your losses. You know, I've explained that this is not about my trading, that the reason we do this is to show you how to find the trades. But if you only take a couple of 3 trades a day, which is plenty of trades, and you wait on the best trade, you're not going to have a lot of losers, especially when you get good at this. So keep that in mind. You know, people, you know, his comment basically was, you know, I only take a few trades, and then I see that I miss 15 easy trades, and I want them to take more trades. Well, the key is not to take more trades. The key is to take less trades and take only the best trades and improve your odds. So if you're constantly looking for a trade, you're going to get fooled and trapped and everything else. And so don't let that happen to you. Wait on the trades. If you're in, and this is the real key, if you're not sure, the best trade is no trade. And I don't say that enough probably, but that's one of my big things is that no trade is sometimes the right trade, even if you, because if you're not 100% sure, you're better off to skip a trade and watch it go without you. Sometimes there's some good trades, and you wouldn't have got in them. Like right here, there's a great entry right there, but it's not a good setup, and you might have missed that whole move. But the key is you got to remind yourself. What most people will do is they'll beat themselves up. Is I missed a good trade. I'm too scared. But really you did the right thing because it wasn't a good setup. And so remind yourself that, hey, even though that went without me, I did the right thing. And so, because the next time you try to do that, like right here, then you get burned. And so, that's a great, just remember that. Remind yourself that no trade is sometimes the best trade, even if it works. Um, if it wasn't a good setup and it didn't fit our rules and you skipped it, then you did the right thing. So, anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.